Hello, today we are going to do one of the most exciting things that I think there is to do coming up into the Christmas season, and that's go and virtually visit a Christmas market. Did you know that Vienna is one of the most visited cities during the Christmas season? With over 20 markets to choose from, it is easy to see why. Last year we chose Vienna as the starting point for our very first European Christmas market adventure. One reason we did it was because we'd been there before. Another reason we did it was because there was so much choice and variety. We just had to go and see what this magical city was all about. During our 3 days in Vienna, we visited 9 markets, and we're going to look at those markets later on in this video. But for now, we're going to start off with some of the practical things that you may need to know to help you have a more successful trip to Vienna and visiting the Christmas markets. You may have heard it said that Vienna has one of the oldest markets in Europe, and that may be true. Did you know that their December Christmas market tradition can be actually traced back to 1296? This was not an official Christmas market, but it's still a date worth, I think, cheering on, that the locals of Vienna came out in the freezing cold in 1296 to go to local and small temporary markets in the height of winter. Vienna, you got my tick. The modern time markets can be traced back to 1626, where there is a mention of huts being temporarily erected from mid-December to January 9th out the front of St. Stephen's Cathedral. As I said, there are over 20 markets throughout the city. There's some very big famous ones, and we're going to touch on some of those, and some maybe lesser known ones that we visited, and we didn't even touch the surface. We saw 9 of over 20. And as you might think, there are a lot of things that could be taken as being a little bit same, but there are also unique experiences if you know what to look for and how to research. So we're going to touch on that a little bit too. One of the things that sets Vienna apart from a lot of other markets in Europe is its starting date. They actually start to open up early November. So if you can't get that close to Christmas time off, but you would love to go to Europe and experience the markets and experience a variety of markets, then that could be something that puts Vienna in favour of getting to the top of your list. If you've never been there before, there's a whole city worth part of your time. How much time can you give Vienna? That is where you need to start. So many more of your decisions can be made if you have clarity of how many days you're going to spend there. I'm going to give you a couple of tips that we used when planning our trip. As I said, we'd actually been to Vienna before, so seeing some of those must-see sites that were bright and shiny weren't necessarily a thing for us, and that is part of why we decided to start our trip in Vienna. Knowing we'd been to Vienna before, we could concentrate on absorbing the market atmosphere, but we still managed to fit in some other things, and that's something that you need to consider. What markets are must-see markets for you? We had a list of markets that we wanted to see. I spent time in Google Maps mapping out where they all were to see how many we could realistically see in the amount of time. Alongside those must-see markets were a list of really wanted to experience things that we didn't get to experience last time we were in Vienna. Let's talk about planning our itinerary for our day by day. What I tended to do was I wrote a list of the markets that I wanted to visit. I mapped them out on Google Maps sort of to get a bit of a location of where they were, and then I would clump them together in areas within the city. So we ended up mainly concentrating on 2 areas, and then the last day, because we had markets we really wanted to see that were a bit more spread out, we did those. So the last day had a fair bit of transport, but by linking everything and clumping it all together, you can stay within that one area and make your transport a little bit less for that time. What we ended up doing for each day was we ended up with 3 markets that we wanted to visit, and then usually 1 or 2 activities that were scheduled in between the market visits. And Also what I have is a just in case list. So I might have some other things in that area that could be interesting to go and visit if we ended up things moved quicker than we thought, or worst case scenario, it rained and we didn't want to be out in the cold and the rain anymore, but we wanted to retreat inside and do something a little bit different. So that was how we scheduled our days. The last day, as I said, we ended up jumping around a bit, and you do lose a bit of time with public transport with stuff like that. So I think we were doing like 25-30 minutes, maybe even longer, on tram rides between a couple of the markets that we visited on that last day. So that meant that one of the things that we were going to do was visit the Belvedere Palace, one of the galleries there, when we went to the Belvedere Palace market. But because it was the last market, because I wanted to see it at night, we didn't get there in time because of how long it took to get between the other two markets and things that we were doing that day. It wasn't I was sad not to go there, but it wasn't a be all and end all. Our objective was the markets, and we got the markets in that we wanted to see. One of the things that was really, really important in all of this planning and everything was that we had a pace that we were happy with. We didn't want to jam pack it so much that we were exhausted at the end of every day. This was the beginning of our 34-day trip across Europe. We were going from Vienna all the way up to Helsinki. So we had a lot to pack in, and we didn't want to exhaust ourselves in that 3 days, but we wanted to get the most out of it. So we made it so that we had things that were achievable each day at a nice steady pace for us. If you're a go-getter, go get it. That's how you do your itinerary. If 3 markets and a couple of other activities a day is too much for you, don't do it. Do what works for you, but remember to pace yourself. And mixing in some cultural stuff with the markets also helps to break up the markets if you're seeing a large number of markets. It helps to give you variety. Vienna was the only city that we'd visited before, so everywhere else we went, it was also a new destination that we'd never visited. So we wanted to get a balance of doing the both. And that was easier in some cities than the other. Okay, we've talked about planning your trip. What can you expect as far as money, temperature, and all of that goes? So Vienna uses the euro. They primarily speak German, so a bit of German doesn't go astray. There are some Austrian dialect to some of the words. It's going to be cold. Can't guarantee snow. We're looking at temperature ranging from 0 to 5 degrees. So layers are going to be key. I found last year that I would get along with a thermal or long sleeve t-shirt underneath, a jumper of some sort, and then my heavy 3/4 length jacket. I didn't necessarily need scarf, beanie and hats a lot of the time in Vienna. The last day it did snow, so it was a lot colder. But definitely in the evening you do want to layer those extra things on, so they're good to have with you. You will need to layer. You will be taking your jacket off, or at least unzipping it, and taking scarves and hats off every time you walk into a building, because they do heat most buildings really well. I don't think we walked into a building anywhere in our trip that was not heated for the outside temperature. Layers are key. And I've got a whole video and blog post down in the description about how to layer and some of the lessons we learnt about packing, so that maybe you can pack lighter than we did. Tips to help you with your market experience. Quite often you hear, if you're on any forum or any Christmas thing for the markets, it is, do they use cash or card? And the easy answer is take both. We were surprised at the amount of vendors that did have a tap option, but there is still the occasional vendor that still only accepts cash for one reason or another, and that's perfectly fine. So have cash with you, be prepared, but it's also a good idea to make sure you've got some change, some euro change, for like using public toilets and things like that. I know the one at Maria-Theresien-Platz, they had some toilets there that you had to pay, I think it was 50 cents to use. So be prepared with some cash just so in those times when you do need it, you've got it and you're ready to go. Let's talk about one of the most fashionable souvenirs that you can get from a Christmas market. In some areas, Vienna is one of them, and that is the Christmas mugs. Now this is one of them. I'll show you some more on the screen while I'm chatting. At each market in Vienna, they do vary their Christmas mugs. So they're usually themed to the market. You can usually find some that might have pictures that associate with where they are. This one does have some of the features of the Prater amusement park, but it also has a little bit of a winter wonderland theme because it is called the winter market. When you go to a Glühwein or anywhere that's selling mulled drink, they might have a price of say €4, but when you get there you get charged €8 or €9 or €10 for your drink, but you also get it in a mug. Now you do not have to keep these mugs. That is a rental, so you do buy it, but if you decide that you don't want to keep a mug from that market, you just have to return it back to the place where you've got it from, and they will then refund you the deposit for your cup. It's really easy. We only ended up bringing home 2 from Vienna. I probably would have liked to have brought 3, but I was trying to be good. I ended up getting 3 in total across the whole trip because we did find another market city that had them that I fell in love with one. Now the other thing that I need to warn you about when you go to a Christmas market, not just in Vienna, but in most Christmas markets we went to across Europe, and I believe I'm hearing that it's across most markets, is don't expect to be able to find somewhere to sit when you buy those scrumptious little snacks from the markets. You can readily lean against tables. They will have tables, but they're usually standing tables. In some places they are out in the open, and they might be like a beer barrel or something that'll be, you know, this high with enough of a tabletop. Lots of time in Vienna you'd end up with other people sharing your little leaning perch, which was really lovely. We got to talk to some people having lunch one day, and then in other places, and there were a couple in Vienna, you might find some covered tables where you can get out of the weather a little bit and actually take a deep breath and enjoy your food. But don't expect to sit down. Seating at the markets was really rare. I can only recall one market that we actually went to in all of our 23 markets in total that had seats. If you want to sit, schedule in some time to go and visit a cafe and have a really nice rest, or find somewhere else that you can sit down and chill, because it won't be at the markets. We're looking at 3 to 4 million visitors a year come to Vienna for the Christmas markets. So don't expect quiet. If you go midweek or earlier in the day, they will be quieter and you will have a bit more of a chance to have a look around. Definitely at night you're looking at it being much busier. You've got the locals who are out. Lots of people want to go and see all the bright shiny lights, which are amazing, and I don't blame them at all. But if you actually want to take in looking at the stalls and what's available, go during the day or midweek. We visited midweek. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the 9 markets we visited. If you want to see more, we've got 3 videos that look at each day and the markets in a little bit more detail. There is also a companion blog for this video on our website. We started off at St. Stephansplatz. At the time I did not know that that was where in 1626 the first market was recorded there, and it was magical. We got there around lunchtime on the first day that we were there. This is a lovely little market. There was a good mix of food and souvenir Christmas decoration-y items. A lot of those felt a lot more mass produced, I guess, but it was still really unique to go to. The food choices there were really good. We had our first try of stew in a bun and had a goulash, and we also got to try potato pancakes, which I really like because I like crispy food. And of course we had our first Glühwein, and I did get this mug because it was the very first European Christmas market Glühwein that we had. From there we went to Maria-Theresien-Platz, and now I love that market. It is in between the Natural History Museum and another museum. I'll put the name on the screen below. And this is just a really pretty little location. The market stalls just nestled in there gave a great vibe. It gave a more intimate vibe into this, even though it was probably the same size, if not a little bit bigger than the one at St. Stephansplatz. This one had this intimate feel. There wasn't as much food. There was food, but not as much there. And it had lots of decorations and, again, mass-produced things, but it was still really lovely. And there were a couple of local vendors there as well. Then that night we went to the Rathaus. Now, this is probably the only time that we broke the rules and went to the big main market at night. We didn't fit it in another time, but it was one of those things where we actually went to that market to tick it off the list, not because it was on our list of must-see, but because it was the main market in Vienna, so we went there. And it was lovely. It was not quite what we expected. To be honest, it's rated as the biggest market in the world. I didn't feel it was the biggest market, but we had the best roast pork roll we've ever had anywhere at that market. So definitely track that one down if you go. And at the Rathaus market, there is the market area in the middle, like right in front of the Rathaus. Then off to one side, there was a massive ice skating rink that people were just loving. And then on the other side is a bit of a magical forest with a merry-go-round and little Ferris wheel and a few other things in it. And it was a really lovely experience. And we don't regret going there at all, especially once we found the pork. We didn't find the crowds on a Monday night terrible, and it was the end of November. The next day we started off at the Freyung market. Now this is where in 1296 the December markets used to be held. And there's actually a really fascinating bits of history online if you're into that sort of thing. And there was a bit of a conflict in interest between the local permanent market and this December market that got set up later on. So the Freyung market is sort of a roll-on to a market that's there every day. It was a bit more rustic, a little bit more local feeling, had this really low-key feel about it, had some really lovely things there. As we walked through this market, there were lots more locally made things about it. As I said, it had a lot more local feel to it. It was just a really lovely market. Again, going earlier in the day, it wasn't really, really busy. And then we walked from there down to the Amhof, which is literally like a block away. And the Amhof market apparently was born out of trying to split this confusion between the Freyung market and the Christmas market. It was a tiny little local artesian market. It was probably 30 stalls maybe maximum, and it was just a little loop. It was really lovely to walk around, see people's creativity. In both those markets we had some great chats with some local artisans who were really proud of what they were doing. We actually fitted in this day a little bit later in the day, a quick trip back to St. Stephen's Cathedral to see that market set up at night, and that was really pretty. We also did that the night before on our way to the Rathaus market. We stopped off at Maria-Theresien-Platz market to see it at night because they are really pretty at night, but at least then we knew that we just needed to take in the vibe of the place and not try and get in other people's way who hadn't experienced the market for the first time. Our second day really was about those local market feel, and we ended our day, which was actually the market closest to our hotel. We ended the day at the Karlsplatz market, and that is really a local artesian market. It's pretty competitive to get in there. You have to be local, you have to do everything by hand. Again, we had some amazing conversations with people. This market's got a really family friendly feel about it. Had some great little booths that you could stand under to get out of the weather if you were having a drink. We'd gone through one day and it was closed like way before opening, and then when we went back at night, because it is close to where locals work and where near a university and stuff, there were lots of people hanging out, enjoying a bit of glühwein and a bit of punch and just having a great night. Some great little rides for the kids. There was even a booth set up with a wood turner set up behind a glass pane where you could see him at work. It was a really lovely hands-on type experience. Okay, we're up to our last day, and this day was the day that we flitted around. But we wanted to make sure that we got some really different experiences within Vienna. And the first one that we did was we headed to the Prater amusement park and the winter market, as I said, with my cup. It was, we went there to go on the Ferris wheel because we wanted to go on the historic Ferris wheel and just have that experience. And then we came down. The market there was quite little. There were lots of food markets. It really sort of felt like an extension of a fun pier or something, because it is in an amusement park. A lot of the amusement stuff wasn't open when we were there because it was so early in the day, and I'm not sure if they do open a lot of it in winter, but things were starting to open up. We had some glühwein and just took in the atmosphere as it was coming to life, but it was a really lovely little setting. Being in the amusement park gave it a totally different feel. As I said, there was that fun fair vibe to it. And from there we headed to the campus market at the university. Now this is a really locally focused market. There were dog biscuits, there were some other items that you'd see at other markets, lots of food, lots of places to hang out and drink. That was one of the places we saw quite a few rides for kids, so it didn't just have, I think it had 3 or 4 rides that little kids could get on, and so their parents could have a good time, and it could be this fun place. And you know, it was just really lovely atmosphere, and it snowed that day, so there was a bit of snow sprinkled around. And it's at that market where, if you've heard of the tree made out of sleighs, that's where that tree is. We finished our market tour of Vienna with the Belvedere market. It is a lovely market. It is known more for its setting out the front of the Belvedere Palace, and it was spectacular. I walked down to the end of the lake and got views back up to the palace with the market in front of it, with all the filigree lighting being lit up and some lighting on in the lake that sort of just helped elevate it. And then because of the setting, it just had this really lovely feel. Again, a lot of mass-produced stuff, a bit of food. It's not a massive market, but it was a really pretty market, and it is known more for its location, and it was a great way to finish our experience in Vienna. So that's our quick rundown of Vienna. If you've got any more questions, put them down below. Have you been to Vienna? Which market did we miss that you considered a must-do? We did try to go to Spittelberg, but it was only open on the weekends, so that one was a bust. If you want to see more, as I said, down in the description below is our 3 markets, and if you want to know what to pack for a winter away, check this video out here. Thanks for joining us. Travel brilliantly. Bye.